So, a few minutes ago, I just realized that I don't know how to go into myself. And with that, I mean that for a very long time, I have been doing stuff. In the beginning, it was consuming, so listening to podcasts, watching videos, and all that stuff. And at some point, I got kind of frustrated with myself because I didn't implement it. I didn't really integrate it. I just consumed it. Like, oh, I understand more now of how to do things, but I didn't use it on myself that much. I think the best example was the habit building things. Like, I understand it. I've used some of it, but I didn't really use the full extent of the knowledge I had. So there was a discrepancy between the knowledge available and my implementation of it and the actual practice, which has gotten better, but it's still messy. And to do something, I would go and consume something instead of just sitting down and thinking about it or doing it. And then while I was then doing stuff like being active and productive and trying to fix stuff outside, kind of to prove to myself that I could, instead of just working with the internal stuff, because it was by a proxy thing, and I was kind of learning other stuff inside as well, but it wasn't focused there. Like when I talk with people, I'm very expressive and outward. I have a very outward going energy, so I can be quite domineering in conversations as well. I'm trying to limit that and pull back and not just explode out at everyone all the time. And then I started traveling, which was also a bunch of doing stuff. And I now realize while sitting and meditating that I don't know how to go internal, because all that force, all my energy is just beaming out all the time, just going out and flooding out and flowing out. The same thing with anger and rage. It's just wah, because whatever's inside just comes out. And I've been told by several people, therapists and stuff, they're oh, well, Jonas, you don't need pushing. And I've always asked to be pushed. And they're no, you don't need pushing. And in the beginning, I was kind of rough and hard on myself, because it was the idea of just throwing myself out into the deep water where I couldn't swim. And it shouldn't be that self-aggressive. But the pushing is definitely true. It is, Jordan Peterson has talked about it, how if you want to be really precise with your one hand, you take the other one and you push against each other, and then you have a lot more fine motor precision. He says that. I don't know how true it is, but there's definitely something to it. The push and pull, it's Taoism, Yin Yang, it's East and West civilization, it's the left and right wings of the political spectrum. There's so many push and pulls. Even our hemisphere in our brains, they are push and pull. A lot of it is inhibitory, but it's also logical and emotional. There's two different systems working in symbiosis, working in cooperation, and also challenging each other. And that's the important part, because I need to be challenged, I need to be pushed, because when I have so much outward going energy, I've been talking with a therapist for more than half a year now, and I've been trying. Well, not trying. I've actually been trying. I shouldn't ridicule that, because I have been trying. It's just I haven't succeeded, because I've been going inwards. That's the correct citation marks, is going inwards, because I thought that was what I did, but all I did was just consume my thoughts, just listen to my thoughts and look at them. I didn't really stop it and turn my energy in and look inwards. It's it's the same thing. I don't take in my breath. I don't take it in. I more watch it and then try and force it different places, and control it instead of just taking it in. And what's the next thing I was gonna say? Yeah, just that I tried going inwards, and well, I couldn't because I didn't know what it was. And so when I asked to be pushed, it was something within me that knew. More than like this logical head brain did, but something within me knew. I need push, I need resistance, I need to be challenged. Because if I'm so outgoing and explosive, and I think I'm going inwards with just throwing things out there, and yes, I might be limiting it a little bit, but it actually needs to go from all this to going inwards. Not necessarily a, like, you know, hunching down depression thing, but just a, like, absorbing instead. It's like the difference between being the one that talks and the one that listens. And I'm pretty shit at listening to a general normal conversation. I can be listening but also be kind of the driving factor of the conversation. So I steer the conversation somewhere, and I push and pull, and I am very aware of what's happening, and I ask questions to lead it somewhere. Not necessarily like I have a plan of where I'm leading it. It's more that like I plant the seeds or I pave the road and the other person walks. Kind of. That's not really the right way to describe it, but basically I'm the driving factor in many conversations. And I try to be more cooperative, and I also try to be more listening and passive. But that's also about absorption and taking things in. And what I realized is with the pushing, like with the therapist for example, is I need someone to challenge me. So I, like, at some point, because if I'm not challenged, I will just keep, you know, bursting out everywhere, just blah 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 blah, and then I need to hit a wall somewhere where I'm challenged, like, oh, I can't go any further, and like start to find the limits and the edges of how far I can go, and then there's something to push against, and then the more and more I'm pushed, well, this recedes. It doesn't just go outwards unlimited. It starts getting pushed back, and the more I feel that, the more I can push up against it and actually redirect it, and maybe I can even angle it. So it's difficult to show with my hands, but basically if the energy is here, and you can have it like deflect back in, and suddenly I'm, you know, creating a kind of closed circuit, and then all the energy is getting back in and absorbed because I'm taking the edges and like slowly rounding it, and then slowly taking it in. And even when I took that breath, I didn't take it in here where I pointed. I like took all the breath and I took it in, but I held it up here instead of just. See, that felt so much different for me already. Just having that conscious thought and then changing it, like, what the hell? And inside it feels like there's not enough. Like, I cannot ever possibly get enough air in. It feels like I'm never satisfied. It's like when you drink a glass of water and it doesn't feel satisfying. Like, it just feels like your lungs aren't big enough. It's kind of that sensation because it's energetic. Like, energetically, I need more spirit and life within me. And yes, you can control that with the breath, but it is also about a mental shift. I'm sharing this because I just realized it, and because well, that's basically it. Just because I realized it and I thought it was interesting. And the moment I realized it, I kind of started going inwards, and I kind of felt that energy while meditating, like absorb and go inwards. And very shortly I realized, oh, I'm thinking about making this video, and I had another thought about a note for the pen conversation with my girlfriend. Like, I go in and I just like dip my pinky toe, and then I'm like, oh, I got something, and then woof, rush out again. And I do that all the time. I want to learn, and I need to learn to not do that, because all the things I've been doing have been doing stuff, Another example is something I've talked with my girlfriend a lot. Like, she says I externalize my critical thinking. Like, there's Daniel Kahneman's idea of thinking fast and slow, or like his book, written with another guy I don't remember the name of, and he really deserves credit as well. Tversky, I think. Anyways, his co-worker and Daniel Kahneman wrote this book, Thinking Fast and Slow, right? I think Kahneman wrote it, but it's their research. Anyways, the specific details are not that important, you should know about it. There's System 1 and System 2, and System 1 is very quick and hipfire and intuitive, and that's basically me all the time. So I guess you could say it's emotional thinking versus logical thinking. I haven't heard that distinction before, but I'm gonna shove some of my own shit in there. That's kind of the idea with the brain dumps, is to just have theory and facts and things already out there and attach my own stuff to it and just like give it a twist or a spin or something, make meaning out of it, which I do intuitively. I don't necessarily sit down and think something through step to step and analyze and be critical, and then I have something and then I put it out. I build as I go along. But yeah, that's me, intuitive thinker, where I don't stop up. Like the process I just explained, that's also the process you use for yourself, I would imagine, I would say. I'm very flying around all the place right now. I'm just not gonna mind that. I will keep steps somewhere. So System 1 is intuitive, hipfire, and System 2 is slow, methodical, and logical. It's critical thinking, and I barely ever use that. What I enjoy is talking with other people and ping-ponging, and I enjoy when they can call my bullshit. I also enjoy when they just sort of agree with me. And at some point I realized that sometimes if I get overexcited, I don't necessarily use the other person as a conversation partner, where I say something and then I want to hear what they say, and I listen and I take it in and I process and digest, and then like, oh, well, here's something, and then we go back. It's more quick, and I kind of use it like when you have like squash but you're only playing with yourself. Like I just use them to throw my own balls off of, and I use them as a stepping stone to get further, because I can't necessarily take the steps myself, or I just don't do it. I just don't just sit down and take the steps myself and go to other places, because I'm a social guy, so I enjoy talking with people also, because then I can get to talk and I can get to like bum 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 bum, and that's just easier when I direct it at someone, and even also if there's like some sort of response. But yeah, the critical thinking part, I will say, is also quite quintessential, something like that, to the going internal part, because I have to stop up and analyze myself instead of just like building as I go along. And yes, people are different types, and yes, there's upsides and downsides, but I just have an imbalance because there's almost no critical thinking, there's almost only intuitive thinking. And so if I want to go more internal, I should practice the critical thinking more, because that more leans toward, well, first off, slowing down. And I don't slow down, I just go all the time. Never stop, never finish. I just keep running from one thing to another, and then I drop something halfway, and then I continue and do something else. And I often switch between like 2, 3, 4, 5 different things. I don't focus on one thing at a time. Again, it's a question of which personality type are you, but it's also a question of reining in those imbalances so you can function optimally. Yes, that's the word. Now, all this goes to show how much I've not been aware because I thought I was going internally. I thought I was going inside with like feeling myself and feeling my emotions, like trying to sense my body through meditation and just generally. And I've been way better at feeling my emotions and actually understanding them, connecting with them, and I've also been able to talk about them, which has been great. Like, it's a super huge step forward for me, and I've grown a lot in that area. And it is more going internal than I was otherwise, or I used to be. But it's like I'm looking at my physical body and the physical sensations, and some of those are emotions that kind of permeate from the physical into like more internal spiritual body stuff. I don't have a clear, concise theory idea of that, but I'm just talking from my own idea and experience. But that was more like going on the surface, and like it's not because it was just like one beam or one ray. It was just like with the energy I was throwing out, it was more like I'm not aware of where the limit is or the border, and that's why I wanted challenge and resistance. But this going inwards was just like sort of around the edge and kind of soft and fuzzy still. So not that clear and concise, kind of like the cell membrane, right? Or like a fleshy part, and I need to go to the bone, because you can make so many correlations with this sort of stuff, but it's kind of like an energetic blob. Like if you look at like microbacteria, microbial life, that's the word. Like the cell membranes, like weird blobs, and like you can kind of permeate it. It's like jelly-like and weird. And then the more complex it gets, and the more like structures it has, more it hardens, and you have like actual shells. And shells can be good; they can also be bad. And I need some I need to take more form, take more shape, and part of that is finding out what shape I'm at this moment, because otherwise I can't edit it. It's like you cannot fix the problem if you don't know what it is. Because your solution's not going to fit. So yeah, energetically, I wasn't looking at myself. I was like using my outward energy and directing that focus into something physical. It's a beginning, but now I'm starting to realize, okay, that there's like an actual spiritual way of looking inside. I don't know how to better describe it. It also sort of fit into all my psychedelic trips. Because I think one of the mistakes I made was I didn't go internal. Like I was just waiting for the drug itself to push me inside. But that's not what's going to happen. And that's the reason why I never really went anywhere. I didn't learn that much from it, because I was just pushing out, and I ingested the drug, and then I would just sit and consume, like I consume videos and other stuff. Like I wasn't ready for it, I just waited for it to show me truths. I was gonna consume it, like a YouTube video or something. And then of course the drugs wouldn't show me anything, because I have to go in and I have to go look. And that's a realization I'm getting right now. Like how deep and how mistaken that actually was. So yeah, that's showing how my brain works immediately. So I think as I go along, and I have different fractured pieces of the puzzle, and then I create the image of the story and tie it together as I go along, and suddenly I arrive at something new, because I think while I talk. Goes to show a lot how I function again. I'm very frantic, and haven't slept that much, so this is a bit whooshy, flowy, and I feel judgment for that, but I'm not going to judge myself. I'm not going to allow that, because the entire idea of the brain dumps is to just get it out. No matter how rough it is, just get it out. And I did. So that is, no matter what, a success. And fuck everything else.